Sexual Assault Awareness Month is being observed in April under the theme, I Ask for Consent. Renetta Court reports.
April is designated as Sexual Assault or Sexual Harassment Awareness Month. This month calls attention to the fact that sexual violence is widespread. This proclamation is a clear declaration to join advocates and communities across the country in taking action to prevent sexual violence, irregardless of race, age, or social status. This is the 19th year the National Sexual Violence Resource Center has organized Sexual Assault Awareness Month with the aim of encouraging individuals and organizations to raise awareness about sexual harassment, assault, and abuse. A big part of the campaign is in educating people on how to prevent those behaviors in their communities. As a result, this newscast spoke with two individuals who work within the education sector, namely Special Education Needs Officer and former head teacher, Mr. Wainwright McIntosh, who is also the Deputy Mayor of New Amsterdam, and head teacher of the Le Cabre Primary School, Ms. Denise Kurt, who shared these details.
It is very important that we sensitize our citizens of Guyana, our citizens of the town of New Amsterdam, with regards to sexual harassment, in addition to verbal transgressions and physical abuse or assault. We have unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical harassment of a sexual nature. Now, it is very important for citizens to familiarize themselves with the Sexual Harassment Act, Chapter 803. Now, this act speaks to sexual harassment, and it is a very technical act. So, I wish to caution, or to advise rather, our citizens of Guyana to familiarize themselves with the Sexual Harassment Act. This may prevent or avoid persons from coming into contact or violating this act with regards to the rights of our fellow citizens. It is a very technical act. For instance, under Section 4 of this act speaks to touching, and I wish to quote under Section 4 of this act, a person commits the sexual offense of sexual assault if he touches the person in a sexual way. Right? So I would like to signal a call to our citizens, our residents of New Amsterdam, and the entire Guyana to familiarize yourselves with the Sexual Harassment Act, Chapter 803, to avoid confrontation with the law and violating the rights of our fellow citizens.
I would define sexual assault as an act in which an individual intentionally, sexually touches another individual or person without consent. It is a physical abuse, and it is also an act of violence where an individual forces the victim to carry out sexual activities without their consent, such as fondling, oral sex, penetration, attempt rape, or even rape.
Ms. Kurt also highlighted how such acts may affect the well-being of children.
I am in the primary situation, and we had some problems or some victims, and it affects some of them greatly, because sometimes they would just come in the classroom and you see they would, they sit down like if they're lost, not paying much attention to the teacher. Sometimes they would be writing things and sending papers around the classroom to other children and some bad things, which is not too good for their upbringing, right? And their concentration in the classroom. So sexual assault has great impact on children, especially the little ones. I had one child in grade 6, I remember, and we had to take a stand with that and bring in other authority, and so that helped the child a little.
She also shared how such matters are dealt with within the school system.
We normally would direct them to the welfare, because remember, we are not equipped to handle those situations. So we have referrals that we would give them, and they would go to the welfare, and the welfare take it up from there. Also in your community, right, we can show those same person love, because remember, they are individuals just like us, and we all can make mistakes. And we can also listen to their stories. We can also advise them to get therapy. They can get cognitive behavioral therapy, and they can get physical therapy also, so that they can recover from that trauma.
She also stated that sex offenders, even though they would have committed such acts, should be given a second chance.
Something might have caused them to carry out the assault, either something in their past or even present, and may cause them to do or to carry out such act. And one thing I want you to get me straight with, the person should be punished for their behavior, especially in the case of rape or fondling. They must be punished for suffer consequences for what they did to the other person, and after which you can pardon them.
This year's Sexual Assault Awareness Month is being observed under the theme, I Ask for Consent. Consent is defined as an affirmative, informed, conscious, and mutual decision to give permission or agree to do something. This year's campaign focuses on consent in an effort to raise awareness that consent is a natural and necessary part of sexual acts.
Free to respect the rights of others. Consent, seeking consent, it's very important. One failing to seek consent can contribute to one being in violation of the Sexual Harassment Act.
I do believe that consent is required before sexual activities carried out, because, for instance, it's an act in which persons must enjoy themselves in the end. And if both parties not consent, it will be some form of discouragement. So even in marriage, if the husband and the wife in bed and the one do not agree or is not in a mood to carry out the act, the other party should not force the other, because that would be a form of rape and it would be a sexual assault. So they must agree or consent to carry out the act.
If you or someone you know might have been sexually harassed or assaulted, it is important that you speak up and seek help.
For those persons who have been involved in sexual harassment or sexual assault, the first thing is love. The individuals that are connected to them, you must love them. After loving them, you listen to their story, whatever they have to say. You listen to them in a comforting way. And then after that, you can direct them to a physician or a therapist, a person that will help them to get over that situation. On this matter, I would like to advise persons in my community or even communities at large, if they are being sexually assaulted in any way, that they can report it to authorities. They have the welfare, they have child care protection, and you have the probation officers they can talk to, or even someone in the community that they can look up or respect, that they can trust, they can find confidence in speaking to that person. They can speak to them and ask them to assist them, because we know that sexual assault leaves persons with trauma sometimes for life. So I would like to encourage them also that they can read up on books. You have some books that talks about sexual assault and recovering from such, and they can also go on educational websites. They can find information there also that can assist them to overcome.
I would like to signal the call to those women out there to protect yourselves, know your rights, and be sure to report any acts of sexual harassment, be it in your home, at your workplace, wherever. It is important for us to champion this cause collectively. Also, just to endorse this point, silence hide violence. So sexual harassment can be considered to be a violent act or activity. So let us collectively be sure, in observance of Sexual Harassment Month, my call goes out to not only the women folks, but to our children out there, our young people, our male folks as well. They too suffered at the hands of violators with regards to sexual harassment. So please speak out. Remember not to hide the violence. Speak out, and let us collectively champion the cause of each other.
Reports of sexual violations can be made to your local police stations, and free counseling and therapy is provided by non-governmental organizations countrywide. Reporting for Channel 8 News, Renetta Kurt.